Everyone, let's talk about Klaviyo's administrative backend, the settings section, and all the other sections that are in the admin area, mainly the left pane. Just high level, we're not going to go too deep into each one because this will be a very, very long video, but I will have other videos specifically for each section to go in more depth. So let me minimize this real quick, and I want to put them in side by side. Come on. Okay, so this is your basically your home page when you sign in. This is a shell account. There's nothing in there. It's a fresh, clean account that's not really connected to a whole bunch of anything really. So there's not going to be a lot of data to show here. However, this is the home page. You've got your alerts, obviously, anything that you had started on earlier that you could pick up and continue. You've got your conversion metrics. Clearly, there's nothing here. Obviously, we haven't been sending anything from this account. Let me move my head here. And so, top performing flows, your campaigns, and you'll see some stats here, high level. Then, what I want to talk about is obviously the Klaviyo platform in general, the benefits, right? So they're an amazing CDP, customer database platform. They've grown into such an awesome platform. They're essentially integrating with the top, for example, platforms out there like Shopify, Gorgeous, which is a customer service support ticketing platform, and a whole bunch of other ones to pull in additional information about your customer's journey and what stage they're in and what's happening with them, right? So like support tickets, what are they complaining about? And in Klaviyo, all that information is there for you to make a decision to send specific customer flows, not campaigns, but flows to address and speak to that customer, solve their problem right away on the messaging platform that they prefer, for example, SMS or email, or both. But you have a lot of information coming into Klaviyo. And so we'll talk about all the features and benefits maybe in more detail in another video. But they've got native integrations with Shopify, which is awesome. They automatically capture all the customer interactions with your brand, their purchasing, their browsing behavior, etc. And they give you actionable insights, right? In Klaviyo, you could tell what's happening for every customer that you have in their journey and how you want to best handle each scenario for each customer. You can get very granular. And so let's talk about high level, the settings section before we jump into some of the other ones. So settings, when you click on the company name, you're going to see some basic stuff right here, like personal information. This is just your login when you're logged in, your personal info. You can go ahead and go through that, but mainly it's organization, your users, the domain that you have for your business. So you would just want to make sure all of this stuff is correct, right? You want to fill out all the time zone information, industry information, and then your users. You want to make sure whoever has access belongs to some kind of a role, like you assign a role to people. So you're giving them enough permissions to do what they need to do and nothing more. That's really important. You can enable, I highly recommend two-factor authentication as well in the security settings here. But domains is another key area. You really want to add your custom domain. Say your domain is xyz.com. And so you want to put in your domain here, add it, authenticate with your DNS provider, wherever you register your domain name. There's a couple of records you need to add if you don't know how to do that. There's a whole bunch of videos on YouTube probably, but I'll create my own soon on how to do this. But it's really important to authenticate and have your own sending domain instead of Klaviyo's default domain that gets sent out in every email, like when flows or emails are being sent, campaigns are being sent out, the recipient can see the domain that is actually sending. So it's just best to obviously show your own brand's domain, right? So this is where you do it. You add your own domain. We'll talk about email authentication, SPF record, your DKIM and DMARC record, which are really, really important for emails. And so you want to have those set up, and they're essentially records in your DNS, but they're highly, highly recommended. Without it, you can have a lot of deliverability problems. So I'll have another video on deliverability and how that works, but just make sure you do that. API keys, if you're but if you're integrating with, let's say you want any other platform that requires API keys from you, you could set them up here, like N8N, for example, to authenticate with Klaviyo and trigger some automations. We could do that here. Security we talked about earlier. Just make sure you have your multi-factor authentication. I think it's really important to have a secure account. And so go through all of these. The billing, obviously, you want to make sure everything's correct. Push notifications are for if you have a mobile application, you could have push notifications sent from Klaviyo to your mobile app users, which is really cool. SMS, if you don't have SMS set up, you don't have a phone number and everything, you could do it from here. And then attribution is important. You want to make sure you understand the attribution of every lead. And so you want to make sure the conversion's credited according to what your business wants set up. And so I'm not going to go too detailed here, but it's important. There's some default settings here. If you don't know what they are, you can leave them as is and come back and adjust later. Let me see. So anonymous tracking, yes, we want to enable that. And then there are a couple of other, like in the other section, this is where all of your preferences pages are: subscriber, landing page, email confirmation. So an unsubscribe page, you want to brand, you want to customize these, you want to make them look like it's your brand and all your colors and everything. And then we'll talk about branding guidelines and content too. So before you start sending out campaigns, designing any templates, anything like that, I would highly recommend starting from the content section, adding your branding guidelines there. And then there is, let me see, under data, there is a section here. Yeah, so sender preferences under email, I would say ignore transactional messages in the sending period. So this is like default 16 hours. So if you send a campaign right now, it's 5 p.m., whatever it is, let's say Monday, 5 p.m., when you send out another campaign, this checks to see if it's been 16 hours before this group of recipients have received email from you. If it's been at least 16 hours, then they'll get your second campaign. If it's been like 4 hours and you're sending another one, you don't want to bombard people. That's what this captures. So it's like, okay, it's been 4 hours, but your window is 16 hours. So I'm not gonna send this campaign to this particular group of people because they've already gotten something from you 4 hours ago. But transactional emails, I would say just click this and save it, because transactional emails are important. You want them to go out as soon as possible. Even if they received campaign emails from you and the window 16 hours, you want them to receive transactional emails as soon as possible, because it has to do with orders, right? Order confirmation, any changes, shipping notifications, things like that. You want them to receive it. So check that off and save. So going to target audience, everything starts essentially right after you do your let me see, so images and brand information in this section. I would say immediately after that, it's audience, right? So list, segments, and the audience profile. That is really important that you understand the distinction between lists and segments. So you have one main list where everyone subscribes into, pop-up form, embedded form, whatever it is. Then, based on the information that you've captured on the form, you could create segments. So on the form, you could have, when you're capturing, say, name and email, that's fine. You want to keep it simple and limited to as many, too many questions. You don't want to have too many questions on there to hurt your conversions on the forms. But say I signed up with my first name and email, you could send me an email follow-up, welcoming me, your welcoming series flow, which we'll talk about. But then you want to ask specific other questions that you could customize my profile with, my birthday, my favorite color, whatever that may be. Once I reply back with that information, that gets saved in my profile. So that additional information is in my profile. Now, when you're creating your segments, you could say, create a segment to everyone who likes the color red. Create a segment of everyone who likes, whatever, that their birthdays coming up in 2 months, something like that, right? You can create these segments. Those are dynamic rule-based grouping of people who are already in your list. And so you can create other segments like, customers, people who have signed up and never bought and never engaged, never opened anything, any email that we've sent them, just no interaction at all with our brand for the past 90 days or 160, whatever, 180 days. You could create segments like that, and you could send them another flow to see if you can get them to become a first-time customer with you, to purchase something from you. And when you go through the series of flows in that particular flow, and they're still not engaging with you, you could have another segment to flush them out, to clean them out of your database, because they're just not interested in your product or what you have to sell, or your brand. So you don't want to keep those profiles in Klaviyo if they're just not engaging with you. So there's things that you could do like that in segmentations. And so profiles, we just talked about. So profiles are really important. You see the interaction. Let me pull up, for example, this is some historical data that you might see here from previous connections. Let me see, I believe I'm here somewhere. Yeah. So for example, you could see where I'm located, how I engaged with, how I signed up, where I came from, my subscriber level. Like if I'm subscribed to email and SMS, you'll see that. Any custom profile information, custom information in my profile that you've collected, birthday, color, all that stuff will be here. You do have to set those up, but I'll show another video how to do that when you're capturing these specific additional information on a form or through an email. You have to set up the parameters for that information to populate in each profile. So, but you could see everything that I've got going on here, what lists and segments I belong to, my metrics, activity log, and everything, right? So moving on to the sign up form itself. So their consent collection tools. Basically, my philosophy is when you're collecting subscribers, quality over quantity. I value quality way more than just accepting everybody who wants to subscribe just to get 10%, 15% off deal, right? You tend to have a lot of people who sign up and just for the temporary one-time thing, and they never engage with your company again. And so do the double opt-in, enable the double opt-in, and basically what that means is, like, when they first sign up, you don't automatically right away pop up and show them the discount code. You want to have another email go out to verify, hey, are you sure you want to subscribe? Just cleared. That's the double opt-in. So they click on that email, and then you fire automatically another email with the code, right? So you design everything in a sign up forms here. You could have pop-up form, you could have a pop-up and then another one that's embedded meaning it's on a specific page of your website. There typically you'll have room to ask more questions, and that's the page that I would drive people to after they've signed up with just the first name and email. Maybe you want another email going out saying, hey, if you want to give us a little bit more information about you, we can custom tailor our campaigns and the information we share with you to be more custom for you. Like give us your favorite color, or if you're in the football and soccer, like what's your favorite team, that kind of thing. Are you a coach, yes or no? So that kind of information could be in an embedded form. You could do that on a pop-up too, but it would be multi-page pop-up form. Typically, the conversion rate will drop based upon how many questions you're asking on the pop-up form. But you could test, it's different with every brand, every niche, every industry. You could test all that out. Highly advised to test A/B test pop-up forms, obviously, A/B test campaigns, A/B test your flows, all of it. That's the only way you're going to know what's working, what's not working. But you could create a form here. You can pick from the template library and then just kind of customize according to your branding guidelines and information you want to put in here. And so whether you want to just capture email, you want to capture email and phone number for SMS purposes, I recommend you do both. You would have the SMS number configured and set up and approved and everything before you do that. But you want to have that, and then you got to have policy pages on your website ready to go, language about SMS and what you're going to do with the information and all that. There's a bunch of stuff that you have to make sure you have set up so that you could do SMS as well, SMS campaigns. And so, yeah, so this is where you go for your sign up forms. Let me see, was there something I wanted to, yeah, if you have additional questions about how to be compliant, and Klaviyo does a really good job in helping you and nudging you to be compliant. But you could check out the GDPR, TCPA, and Can-Spam Act. Those are links down here. You can check them out to learn more about how you should be communicating with your email and SMS subscribers. And so let's talk about flows. So there's a certain number of flows you have to have. Highly recommended, right? These are your welcome series, which is kind of default. This account is fresh account, kind of, I haven't really customized anything. So by default, you'll have a welcome series here that you can customize. Welcome series, you need abandoned cart, you need post-purchase flows, you need win-back series, like win-back campaigns. You know, people who have purchased something and then you don't see them for X amount of time, like a month, 2 months, 3 months. You want to win them back. And then there's browse abandonment here. I think it's probably part of win back, but you want browse abandonment. People browsing your collection pages, browsing on a product, but not doing anything, product page, but not doing anything. So you want to bring them back. You want to entice them to come back and kind of check it out more or add to cart and all that, right? So this particular account that you're looking at on the left is a fresh account. It's not really connected to any e-commerce platform yet. It used to be, but once you do, and once you have profiles pulled in, there's a lot of flows that you can create. There's over 100 flows in Klaviyo that I counted. I'm not suggesting you create 100 flows, but you should probably have at least 7 to 10 standard flows in there, and I think that'll be a good start. But here, minimum is these 4 that you need to have. I'm not going to go through creating flows. That's a whole different video, but just make sure you have these 4 at least created and working and tested on mobile, on desktop, everything, the messaging, the codes. We'll talk about it's in content. Coupon codes, make sure they're all working and connected to your e-commerce platform before you turn these flows live, okay? So moving on to campaigns. So campaigns versus flows. So flows are triggered by customer actions, right? For the most part. Campaigns are one-time sends. So you design your campaign template based on your branding guidelines and everything. You have some static sections, right? Top, footer, etc. And in the middle, you keep changing what you're promoting. But those are campaigns that you schedule and you send off one at a time. They're not automated. You could schedule them multiple to happen, but they're still one-off campaigns, right? And so when you have the correct form to capture the right information about your customer base, using that information, you create the segments that matter to your customers. Based on the segments, you have campaigns that could be really targeted. People who like the red color and the team Arsenal, the soccer club team. People, whatever the customer, like birthdays, somebody's, anyone's birthday coming up in the next 60 days, create a segment and then do this type of flow, right? So it all kind of builds up, quality over quantity, as I mentioned, and then it all comes into work in your flows and your campaigns, because based on that information, you start having solid campaigns that actually perform, people care about and love the product, the information that you're sending them because it matters to them. You're not sending a Barcelona related, I'm a soccer fan, but you don't send Barcelona jersey just came out, oh my God, buy this and look at this and blah, blah, blah campaign to me if I'm an Arsenal fan and I don't really care about Barca, right? Barca. So you want to send stuff that's tailored to me and my preferences. That way you're going to have higher open rates, higher click-through rates, higher conversion rates. And then all of that interaction If you can get me to reply back in your add a comment, reply back, that's even better in terms of deliverability, because if my provider is Gmail and you're sending me information, right? These platforms, Gmails, Yahoos, MSNs, they see how their customer, me in this case, reacts to what your brand is sending me, right? So if I'm opening your emails, great. If I'm just deleting them all the time, I'm not even opening them, that's a signal, right? It's a bad signal to them that, like, our customer's not really interested from, getting emails from this brand. Maybe we should not put them in spam per se, but put them in like promotional tab, like in Gmail, instead of it going into inbox. So I'm kind of going off tangent here, but your campaigns need to matter. Okay, they need to matter to the people who are receiving them. You don't want to just blanketly send out, let's say you have 5,000 people in your subscriber list. Every time you have something, you send it to all 5,000 at the same time. Sometimes you'll do that. Black Friday, Cyber Monday, big promotion. You have a retail location. You want people to come to the retail location if they're nearby. Well, that one actually might go to people who are local, but Christmas, New Year's, those types of promotions, yeah, you want everybody to get it. But if it's custom, like, Arsenal jerseys just dropped, blah, 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 you don't want to send that to everybody because everybody doesn't care about Arsenal jersey. You want to send that to the people who really care about that. Now, there's some nuances there. You could have, some people say, hey, but what if, so-and-so knows someone who likes Arsenal and they're not going to know about it. There's some nuances there, yes, but typically you want the content of your campaign to matter, to be important to the person receiving. Otherwise, your deliverability is not going to be great, and it's going to suffer if you keep sending them things that they don't really care about. Moving on to reviews. This is pretty cool from Klaviyo. They have reviews. If you don't have any app in Shopify, for example, that you want something to handle reviews, you should have something for reviews. And you are on Klaviyo, I highly recommend using Klaviyo's reviews widget in your product pages and collection pages. Data is going to stay in Klaviyo as opposed to having some kind of a third party, another platform, say Smile or Stamp.io, for example, and then importing reviews into Klaviyo and having that interaction, which you can do. There's nothing wrong with that, but just understand reviews are possible in Klaviyo as well. Very important to have that. And so now in the content section, you have all of your, like I mentioned, start with your branding guidelines, your logo, your colors, your type fonts, typography, etc. And then set up your coupons, make sure your coupons are working, connect it to your Shopify store, for example, because these are dynamic coupons. Say you want to offer cart level discount for somebody who's subscribing. And so those coupons are created here first, but they're generated in Shopify when it needs to happen. So dynamically triggering that coupon, it's like a one-off coupon for every single instance of it. It's not one coupon applied to everybody. Everyone gets a dynamic coupon specifically tailored to them and sent in the email to that person, right? So make sure your coupons are created here and they work. Test them out. But templates, you can create, you can hire people, Upwork, Fiverr, etc. if you want to like really design something custom. I would recommend you stick to fonts that are in Klaviyo and they're universal as much as possible, versus your custom fonts that you have on your website, perhaps that it's not in Klaviyo. Sure, you can import them in Klaviyo, but nothing wrong with that. Just make sure you have fallback font. So you send me a campaign and you're using some custom fonts that my computer doesn't have, and I have to like download it or do whatever to just view. Don't make me do that, right? Have a fallback, say Arial, whatever, sans serif, whatever is available in Klaviyo. You select that as the fallback in case the customer doesn't have these custom fonts. Fall back to this and make sure that it looks good. Test it, look at it. And then that way you could have your custom fonts, but then you have a fallback. Otherwise, it's going to look all weird and it's not going to be a good experience for the user, right? So start with any template. You can design everything in Klaviyo. If you have a designer, you want to work with them, do that. Create these various different static sections, save them as blocks and sections so you can keep reusing them if you want to. Header section, there's footer section, there's all kinds of different sections in between that you could have in your campaign. You may want to have different layouts, right? You can design all of that and you could save them. I'm not going to go through doing it right now, but I have another video I could show how to do this stuff. But when you have it saved and say it's Black Friday, you've already got a designer who's created cool sections for Black Friday with the colors for Black Friday and everything, just for that promotion. So you can have a Black Friday template, actually just save it as a Black Friday template and go with that. But if you wanted to keep your main template, but import certain sections that you've saved, and blocks that you've saved for Black Friday, you just drag and drop into your main template, and now you've got it all ready to go. You don't have to keep recreating this stuff all the time. So the template library will have that universal content, reusable content is what I was talking about earlier for header, footer, social links, etc., disclaimers. And so you could do all of that in here. Let me see what's next. Analytics. I think this is the last slide. This is where you want to keep your eyes on every week, every month, every quarter. I typically look at it weekly, monthly, quarterly, like I said, because I want to know what's happening. You can go to analytics real quick on the dashboard. You have all kinds of metrics from Klaviyo: deliverability, open rates, click-through rates, which flows are doing better than others, which campaign's doing better, how much revenue did this campaign generate versus the other one, and so on. So just a ton of information. Just overall how the business is doing in terms of your campaigns. If you want to, let me just close, let me minimize this, maximize this real quick. So all the metrics that you want to cover, keep track of, they're all here. Benchmarks, like I said, your deliverability rate. There's just a ton of information here. I'll have a different, like I said, video for each one of these sections to go in more depth. But you want to, every time you send a campaign, say you send weekly campaigns or multiple campaigns per week, and so you want to check weekly. How are things going? Are you on the right track? Are your subscribers receiving your campaigns? And are they interacting? Are they opening? Are they clicking? Are you generating money from these? Because Klaviyo, your email campaigns, your flows, they're supposed to be generating 25 to 30 or 40% of your online revenue. So very important. You want to keep an eye on this every week, every month, every quarter to make sure you're in the right track. If not, this gives you a ton of information as to which campaign didn't do well, which flow is not working really, it's not really generating income it's supposed to. And so dive in and try to do some A/B testing and see, what works, what doesn't work, and keep adjusting until you get that metric that you really want to hit. And so lots of information in analytics. So take a look at all this stuff, guys. It's a lot of information, I know, but there's Klaviyo is one of my favorite platforms. I've worked with Constant Contact, MailChimp, a couple of other ones I can't remember, but hands down for e-commerce businesses, Klaviyo is the #1 platform that I love working with. If you're a service-based business, you could technically use Klaviyo, but there's other platforms that are much better. If you're just service-based, you're not e-commerce. But if you're e-commerce and you're not on Klaviyo, I don't know what you're doing. But this is really cool. Look out for some other videos. Like I said, we'll dive into deep into each one of these sections in more depth. All right, take care.